by the late 1500s the world had changed forever. New European empires clawed their way into the Americas. Indigenous nations resisted desperately. And on the shores of West and Central Africa, millions of lives stood on the edge of a storm. This is the story of how the Americas were reshaped, through violence, ambition, and the forced labor of African people. This chapter is the birth of colonial America and the birth of Black America. The first enduring English settlement, Jamestown, was founded in 1607. It survived only through the knowledge, generosity, and labor of the Powhatan Confederacy, who taught colonists how to grow food and navigate the land. But as more Europeans arrived, fear and ambition replaced cooperation. Conflicts erupted. Native homelands were seized. Cultures were displaced. This pattern repeated as the French, Dutch, and Spanish built colonies across North America. Every colony shared two goals: land and labor. The land came from indigenous nations. The labor would soon come from Africa. In August 1619, an English ship arrived in Virginia carrying a small group of Africans. They were seized from a Portuguese slave vessel. These were the first documented Africans to enter English North America. Some worked as indentured servants, as did many Europeans at the time. But within decades the system hardened. Colonial laws shifted, and a brutal hereditary system of race-based chattel slavery emerged. From this moment on, African identity in America would be shaped by a system designed to extract labor, break families, and erase culture, but it would fail. Because through this suffering a new people would emerge. A new culture, a new identity. The beginnings of Black America. From the 1600s to the 1800s, over 12 million Africans were taken across the Atlantic. Millions more died in wars, raids, and forced marches before even reaching the coast. Families were torn apart. Children were taken from parents. Entire villages disappeared. On the ships, hundreds were chained together in suffocating darkness. Disease swept through the decks. Many did not survive the journey. Those who resisted were beaten, starved, or thrown into the sea. This nightmare was known as the Middle Passage. And yet, through unimaginable pain, Africans held onto fragments of language, memory, rhythm, and spirit. These fragments would grow into the cultural foundations of African American life. The enslaved came from diverse kingdoms and cultures. The Yoruba, Igbo, and Akan of West Africa. The Congo and Bundu of Central Africa. The Wolof, Monde, and Fula peoples. Many others from regions spanning Senegal to Angola. Each brought languages, music, spiritual traditions, farming knowledge, ironworking skills, and social customs. These African cultures did not vanish. They transformed, blending, adapting, and surviving under extreme oppression. They formed the roots of Black America. As colonies expanded, slavery became the backbone of the American economy. In the Chesapeake, enslaved Africans produced tobacco, the green gold, that financed colonial growth. In the Carolinas, West African rice-growing expertise built massive plantations. In the North, enslaved people labored in homes, shops, docks, shipyards, and emerging industries. Slavery was not a Southern phenomenon alone. New York, Boston, Philadelphia all profited from it. This system shaped every institution: law, religion, education, the courts, and the economy. America was being built, and Africans were doing the building. But slavery did not mean surrender. Every day, Africans resisted in ways small and large. They slowed work. They broke tools. They shared forbidden knowledge. They preserved songs, stories, and rhythms. They built families and communities under constant threat. Some fled into swamps and mountains, forming maroon communities, free Black villages that fought off slave catchers. Others rebelled outright. Early uprisings in New York, Virginia, and the Carolinas revealed a truth colonists feared. Enslaved Africans refused to accept bondage. This resistance laid ideological foundation for demands for future freedom. Under slavery, African and European traditions blended. From this fusion emerged a spirituals, born from African rhythms and Christian themes. A the ring shout, an ancient African circle dance that survived. A new forms of storytelling, call and response, and oral tradition. A early black churches, which became centers of hope and resistance. These cultural roots would later fuel abolition movements, civil rights activism, and some of America's greatest artistic contributions. By the mid-1700s, the American colonies had grown wealthy largely off enslaved labor. But Britain tightened control through taxes and restrictions. Protests erupted. Colonists began calling for freedom, even as they denied that same freedom to the people who worked their fields and built their cities. A contradiction was forming, one that would define the coming revolution. Colonial anger grew. British authority wavered. Shots were fired. The world was about to change. Black Americans, free and enslaved, watched events closely. Many hoped the coming conflict might be a path to freedom. Some joined colonial militias. Others joined the British, who promised emancipation for escapees. And standing at the very first clash, the Boston Massacre, was Crispus Attucks, a man of African and Native heritage. He became the first American to die for the cause of independence. The revolution was beginning, and Africans would play a critical role.